Hey guys. So, this next chapter is called Bruno Jenkins Disappears. The Grand High Witch was starting to talk again. I am now going to prove to you, she said, that this recipe is working to perfection. You understand, of course, that you can set the alarm clock to go off at any time you like. It does not have to be 9 o'clock. So yesterday I am personally preparing a small quantity of the magic formula in order to give you a public demonstration. But I am making one small change in the recipe. Before I am roasting the alarm clock, I am setting it to go off, not at 9 o'clock the next morning, but at 3:30 this afternoon, which means 3:30 this afternoon. And that, she said, glancing at her wristwatch, is in precisely 7 minutes' time. The audience of witches was listening intently, sensing that something dramatic was about to happen. So what am I doing yesterday with this magic liquid? Asked the Grand High Witch. I will tell you what I am doing. I am putting one droplet of it into a very squishy chocolate bar, and I am giving this bar to a repulsive, smelly little boy who is hanging round the lobby of the hotel. The Grand High Witch paused. The audience remained silent, waiting for her to go on. I watched this repulsive little brute gobbling up the squishy bar of chocolate, and when he had finished, I said to him, "Was that good?" He said it was great. So I said to him, "Would you like some more?" And he said, "Yes." So I said, "I will give you 6 more chocolate bars like that if you will meet me in the ballroom of this hotel at 3:25 tomorrow afternoon." 6 bars, cried this greedy little swine. I'll be there. You bet I'll be there. So the stage is set, shouted the Grand High Witch. The proof of the pudding is about to begin. Do not forget that before I am roasting the alarm clock yesterday, I am setting it for 3:30 today. It is now, she glanced again at her watch, it is now exactly 25 minutes past 3, and the nasty little stinker who will be turning into a mouse in 5 minutes' time should at this very moment be standing outside the doors. And by gum, she was absolutely right. The boy, whoever he might be, was already rattling the door handle and banging on the doors with his fist. "Quick!" shrieked the Grand High Witch. "Put on your wigs! Put on your gloves! Put on your shoes!" There was a great rustle and bustle of putting on wigs and gloves and shoes, and I saw the Grand High Witch herself reach for her face mask and put it on over that revolting face of hers. It was astonishing how that mask transformed her. All of a sudden she became once again a rather pretty young lady. "Let me in!" came the boy's voice from behind the doors. "Where are those chocolate bars you promised me? I'm here to collect. Dish them out." "He is not only smelly, he is also greedy," said the Grand High Witch. "Remove the chains from the doors and let him come in." The extraordinary thing about the mask was that its lips moved quite naturally when she spoke. You really couldn't see it was a mask at all. One of the witches leapt to her feet and unfastened the chains. She opened the 2 huge doors. Then I heard her saying, "Why, hello, little man. How lovely to see you. You've come for the chocolate bars, have you not? They're all ready for you. Do come in." A small boy wearing a white t-shirt and grey shorts and gym shoes entered the room. I recognised him at once. He was Bruno Jenkins, and he was staying in the hotel with his parents. I didn't care for him. He was one of those boys who's always eating something whenever you meet him. Meet him in the hotel lobby and he's stuffing sponge cake into his mouth. Pass him in the corridor and he's fishing potato crisps out of a bag by the fistful. Catch sight of him in the hotel garden and he's wolfing a dairy milk bar and has 2 more sticking out of his trouser pocket. What's more, Bruno never stopped boasting about how his father made more money than my father and that they owned 3 cars. But worse than that, yesterday morning I had found him kneeling on the flagstones of the hotel terrace with a magnifying glass in his hand. There was a column of ants marching along one of the flagstones, and Bruno Jenkins was focusing the sun through his magnifying glass and roasting the ants one by one. "I like watching them burn," he said. "That's horrible," I cried. "Stop doing it." "Let me see you stop me," he said. At that point I had pushed him with all my might, and he had crashed sideways onto the flagstones. His magnifying glass had splintered into many pieces, and he leapt up, shrieking, "My father is going to get you for this!" Then he had run off, presumably to find his wealthy dad. That was the last time I'd seen Bruno Jenkins until now. I doubted very much that he was about to be turned into a mouse, although I must confess that I was secretly hoping it might happen. Either way, I didn't envy him being up there in front of all those witches. "Darling boy," cooed the Grand High Witch from up on the platform, "I have your chocolates all ready for you. Do come up here first and say hello to all these lovely ladies." Her voice was quite different now. It was soft and gentle and absolutely dripping with syrup. Bruno was looking a bit bewildered, but he allowed himself to be led up onto the platform, where he stood beside the Grand High Witch and said, "Okay, where are my 6 bars of chocolate?" I saw the witch who'd let him in quietly putting the chain back on the door handles. Bruno didn't notice this. He was too busy asking for his chocolate. "The time is now 1 minute before 3:30, announced the Grand High Witch. "What the heck's going on?" Bruno asked. He wasn't frightened, but he wasn't looking exactly comfortable either. "What is this?" he said. "Give me my chocolate." 30 seconds to go, cried the Grand High Witch, gripping Bruno by the arm. Bruno shook himself clear and stared at her. She stared back at him, smiling with the lips of her mask. Every witch in the audience was staring at Bruno. 20 seconds, cried the Grand High Witch. "Give me the chocolate," shouted Bruno, becoming suddenly suspicious. "Give me the chocolate and let me out of here." 15 seconds, cried the Grand High Witch. "Will one of you crazy punks kindly tell me what all this is about?" shouted Bruno. 10 seconds, cried the Grand High Witch. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. We have ignition! I could have sworn I heard an alarm clock ringing. I saw Bruno jump. He jumped as though somebody had stuck a hat pin deep into his bottom and yelled, "Ow!" He jumped so high that he landed on a small table up there on the stage, and he started hopping about on the top of the table, waving his arms and yelling his head off. Then suddenly he became silent. His whole body stiffened. "The alarm has gone off!" shrieked the Grand High Witch. "The mouse maker is beginning to work." She started hopping about on the platform and clapping her gloved hands together, and then she shouted out, "This smelly brat, this filthy scum, this horrid little louse will soon, very, very soon become a lovely little mouse." Bruno was getting smaller by the second. I could see him shrinking. Now his clothes seemed to be disappearing and brown fur was growing all over his body. Suddenly he had a tail. And then he had whiskers. Now he had 4 feet. It was all happening so quickly. It was a matter of seconds only. And all at once, he wasn't there anymore. A small brown mouse was running around on the tabletop. "Bravo!" yelled the audience. "She's done it! It works! It's fantastic! It's colossal! It's the greatest yet! You are a miracle, old brainy one!" They were all standing up and clapping and cheering, and the Grand High Witch produced a mousetrap from the folds of her dress and started to set it. Oh no, I thought. I don't want to see this. Bruno Jenkins may have been a bit of a stinker, but I'm dashed if I want to see him having his head chopped off. "Where is he?" snapped the Grand High Witch, searching the platform. "Where has that mouse got to?" She couldn't find him. Clever Bruno must have jumped down off the table and scampered off into some corner or even down a small hole. Thank heavens for that. "It matters not," shouted the Grand High Witch. "Silence and sit down!" The Ancient Ones. The Grand High Witch stood on the very centre of the platform, and those dangerous eyes of hers travelled slowly around the audience of witches who were sitting so meekly before her. "All those over 70, put up your hands," she barked suddenly. 7 or 8 hands went up in the air. "It comes to me said the Grand High Witch, "that you ancient ones will not be able to climb high trees in search of Gruntel's eggs." "We won't, your grandness. We're afraid we won't," chanted the ancient ones. "Nor will you be able to catch the crab cruncher, who lives high up on the rocky cliffs," the Grand High Witch went on. "I can't exactly see you sprinting after the speedy cat springer either, or diving into deep waters to spear the blabbersnitch, or striding the bleak moors with a gun under your arm to shoot the grobblesquirt. You are too old and feeble for those things." "We are," chanted the ancient ones. "We are, we are." "You ancient ones have served me well over many years," said the Grand High Witch, "and I do not wish to deny you the pleasure of bumping off a few thousand children each, just because you have become old and feeble. I have therefore prepared personally, with my own hands, a limited quantity of delayed action mouse maker, which I will distribute to your ancient ones before you leave the hotel." "Oh, thank you," cried the old witches. "You are far too good to us, your grandness. You are so kind and thoughtful." "Here's a sample of what I am giving you," shouted the Grand High Witch. She fished around in a pocket of her dress and brought out a very small bottle. She held it up and shouted, "In this tiny bottle is 500 doses of mouse maker. It's enough to turn 500 children into mice." I could see that the bottle was made of dark blue glass and that it was very small, about the same size as the ones you can buy at the chemist with nose drops in them. "Each of your ancient ones will get 2 of these bottles," she shouted. Thank you, a most generous and thoughtful one," chorused the ancient witches. "Not one drop will be wasted. Each of us will promise to squish and squallop and squiggle 1,000 children." "Our meeting is over," announced the Grand High Witch. "Here's the timetable for the remainder of your stay in this hotel. Right, now we must all go out onto the Sunshine Terrace and have tea with that ridiculous manager. Next, at 6 o'clock tonight, those witches who are too old to climb trees after Gruntel's eggs will report to my room to receive 2 bottles each of mouse maker. My room number is 454. Do not forget it. Then, at 8 o'clock, all of you will assemble in the dining room for supper. We are the lovely ladies of the RSPCC, and they are setting up 2 long tables especially for us. But do not forget to put the cotton plugs up your noses. That dining room will be full of filthy little children, and without the nose plugs the stink will be unbearable. Apart from that, remember to behave normally at all times. Is everything clear? Any questions?" "I have one question, your grandness," said a voice from the audience. "What happens if one of the chocolates we are giving away in our shops gets eaten by a grown-up?" "That's just too bad for the grown-up," said the Grand High Witch. "This meeting is over," she shouted. "Out you go." The witches stood up and began gathering their things together. I was watching them through the crack and hoping to heaven they would hurry up and leave so that I might be safe at last. "Wait!" shrieked one of the witches in the back row. "Hold everything!" Her shrieking voice echoed through the ballroom like a trumpet. All the witches suddenly stopped and turned and looked towards the speaker. She was one of the taller witches, and I could see her standing there with her head tilted back and her nose in the air, and she was sucking in great long breaths of air through those curvy pink seashelly nostrils of hers. "Wait!" she shouted again. "What is it?" the others cried out. "Dog's droppings," she yelled. Just then I got a whiff of dog's droppings. "Surely not," the others shouted. "There couldn't be." Yes, shouted the first witch. "There it is again. It's not strong, but it's there. I mean, it's here. It's definitely somewhere not too far away." "What's going on down there?" shouted the Grand High Witch, glaring down from the platform. "Mildred's just got a whiff of dog's droppings, your grandness," someone called back to her. "What rubbish is this?" shouted the Grand High Witch. "She has dog's droppings on the brain. There are no children in this room." "Hang on," cried the witch called Mildred. "Hang on, everybody. Don't move. I'm getting it again." Her huge curvy nose holes were waving in and out like a pair of fishtails. It's getting stronger. It's hitting me harder now. Can't the rest of you smell it? All the noses of all the witches in that room went up in the air, and all their nostrils began to suck and sniff. "She's right," cried another voice. "She's absolutely right. Dog's droppings it is, strong and foul." In a matter of seconds, the entire assembly of witches had taken up the dreaded cry of dog's droppings. "Dog's droppings," they shouted. "The room is full of it. Why did we not smell it before? It stinks like a sewer. Some little swine must be hiding not so very far away from here." "Find it!" screamed the Grand High Witch. "Track it down! Hootle it out! Follow your noses till you get it!" The hairs on my head were standing up like the bristles of a nail brush, and a cold sweat was breaking out all over me. "Hootle it out, this little lump of dung!" screeched the Grand High Witch. "Don't let it escape. If it is in here, it has observed the most secret things. It must be exterminated immediately." Metamorphosis. I remember thinking to myself, there's no escape for me now. Even if I make a run for it and manage to dodge the lot of them, I still won't get out because the doors are chained and locked. I'm finished. I'm done for. Oh, Grandmama, what are they going to do to me? I looked around and I saw a hideous painted and powdered witch's face staring down at me, and the face opened its mouth and yelled triumphantly, "It's here! It's behind the screen! Come and get it!" The witch reached out a gloved hand and grabbed me by the hair, but I twisted free and jumped away. I ran. Oh, how I ran. The sheer terror of it all put wings on my feet. I flew around the outside of the great ballroom, and not one of them had a chance of catching me. As I came level with the doors, I paused and tried to open them, but the big chain was on them and they didn't even rattle. The witches were not bothering to chase me. They simply stood there in small groups, watching me and knowing for certain that there was no way I could escape. Several of them were holding their noses with gloved fingers, and there were cries of, "Pooh, what a stink! We can't stand this much longer." "Catch it then, you idiots!" screamed the Grand High Witch from up on the platform. "Spread out in a line across the room and close in on it and grab it. Corner this filthy little gumboil and seize it and bring it up here to me." The witches spread out as they were told. They advanced towards me, some from one end, some from the other, and some came down the middle between the rows of empty chairs. They were bound to get me now. They had me cornered. From sheer and absolute terror, I began to scream. "Help!" I screamed, turning my head towards the doors in the hope that somebody else might hear me. "Help! Help!" "Get it!" shouted the Grand High Witch. "Grab hold of it! Stop it yelling!" They rushed at me. Then, and about 5 of them grabbed me by the arms and legs and lifted me clear off the ground. I went on screaming, but one of them clapped a gloved hand over my mouth, and that stopped me. "Bring it here," shouted the Grand High Witch. "Bring the spying little worm up here to me." I was carried onto the platform with my arms and legs held tight by many hands, and I lay there suspended in the air, facing the ceiling. I saw the Grand High Witch standing over me, grinning at me in the most horrible way. She held up the small blue bottle of mouse maker, and she said, "Now for a little medicine. Hold his nose to make him open his mouth." Strong fingers pinched my nose. I kept my mouth closed tight and held my breath, but I couldn't do it for long. My chest was bursting. I opened my mouth to get one quick breath of air, and as I did so, the Grand High Witch poured the entire contents of the little bottle down my throat. There he is getting caught. Ooh. Oh, the pain and the fire! It felt as though a kettle full of boiling water had been poured into my mouth. My throat was going up in flames. Then very quickly the frightful burning, searing, scorching feeling started spreading down into my chest and into my tummy, and on into my arms and legs and all over my body. I screamed and screamed, but once again the gloved hand was clapped over my lips. The next thing I felt was my skin beginning to tighten. How else can I describe it? It was quite literally a tightening and a shrinking of the skin all over my body, from the top of my head to the tops of my fingers to the ends of my toes. I felt as though I was a balloon and somebody was twisting the top of the balloon and twisting, and the balloon was getting smaller and smaller, and the skin was getting tighter and tighter, and soon it was going to burst. Then the squeezing began. This time I was inside a suit of iron and somebody was turning a screw. and with each turn of the screw the iron suit became smaller and smaller, so that I was squeezed like an orange into a pulpy mess, with the juice running out off my sides. After that there came a fierce prickling sensation all over my skin, or what was left of my skin, as though tiny needles were forcing their way out through the surface of the skin from the inside, and this, I realised now, was the growing of the mouse fur. Far away in the distance I heard the voice of the Grand High Witch yelling, 500 doses! This stinking little carbuncle has had 500 doses, and the alarm clock has been smashed. And now we are having instantaneous action. I heard clapping and cheering, and I remember thinking, I'm not myself any longer. I have now gone clear out of my own skin. I noticed that the floor was only an inch from my nose. I noticed also a pair of little furry front paws resting on the floor. I was able to move those paws. They were mine. At that moment I realised that I was not a little boy any longer. I was a mouse. Now for the mousetrap, I heard the Grand High Witch yelling. I've got it right here, and here's a piece of cheese. But I wasn't going to wait for that. I was off across the platform like a streak of lightning. I was astonished at my own speed. I leapt over Witch's feet right and left, and in no time at all I was down the steps and onto the floor of the ballroom itself and skittering off among the rows of chairs. What I especially liked was the fact that I made no sound at all as I ran. I was a swift and silent mover, and quite amazingly, the pain had all gone now. I was feeling quite remarkably well. It's not a bad thing after all, I thought to myself, to be tiny as well as speedy when there's a bunch of dangerous females after your blood. I selected the back leg of a chair and squeezed up against it and kept very still. In the distance, the Grand High Witch was shouting, "Leave the little stinkpot alone. It is not worth bothering about. It is only a mouse now. Somebody else will soon catch it. Let us get out of here. The meeting is over. Unlock the doors and shove off to the Sunshine Terrace to have tea with that idiotic manager." Wow. So the boy's no longer a boy anymore. He's a mouse. I wonder if the people in the hotel will catch him. Let's find out tomorrow.